Welcome back to the Download Illuvium news. We have the one and only Stephen Clark, the director of the Illuvium MMO Lite, coming on with us today. And we're going to ask him every single question. We're going to throw the book at this guy to get every single answer we need from the MMO Lite timelines. We're going to be asking about game mechanics, capture mechanics, NFT systems, economy, token sinks, everything we can possibly ask. We're going to. Stephen has always been very transparent with us. Illuvium has been quite transparent, but we've never really had the chance to directly ask him ourselves. I'm very excited. Say hello to the one and only Stephen.
Hey there.
How's it going, guys? We did
You're
not
right
prep
about
that very well.
Throwing the book, man. You wrote a book of questions.
See, at the end, I'm very excited. We've got a little lightning round as well. So definitely make sure you stay on the episode. Make sure you stay watching to the end. Taran did a huge work helping me prep these questions. He knows the stuff to ask. He's been keen to ask a lot of this stuff. So I'm very, very excited to see what comes out of this. So first, let's start off strong. You've said Illuvium wants to move away from traditional stat-based RPG systems. Why did you choose to base progression on synergies and affinities instead of the usual strength, intelligence, and all those sorts of stats you might see in something like World of Warcraft?
All right, dive right in. I mean, this just looked like a really cool opportunity. I think this system is really exciting. Basically, having any kind of connection in parallel with Arena that we can seems really good. This is an ecosystem of games, not just one game. So being able to take something super fun from an auto battler and then kind of convert that to an RPG system feels just like a really sweet opportunity. And I think it does a lot of really interesting things for game depth and world building and flavor. It fits the IP so well especially because the kind of loudest or most established point of the IP is Arena. So it just seemed like a really sick opportunity for us to use, and it's like my most exciting system that we've worked on. So I hope
it is actually fun. Yeah, it is actually really, really interesting because most games, like we talked about, I mean, pretty much all RPG games, you've got your HP, your strength, your intelligence. This will be one of the few. I won't say the first because I'm sure there is an indie game out there that's tried something. But yeah, it will be one of the few that does something in a synergistic kind of manner, which will be very, very interesting. So the question I want to ask, man, is one of the biggest problems that we had was the lack of Ranger progression. There was a lot of focus on the Illuvials and leveling up the Illuvials, not so much on the Ranger. So in your mind, what does it actually look like to level up the Ranger? Are we talking new abilities, gear? Do we unlock Illuvials over time with the Ranger progression? What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's all those things. I mean, I agree with you. I think that looking at the sort of thing that felt missing most to me about Overworld as it is now is some kind of, like, you are the Ranger and not feeling like you're making progress as the Ranger is disappointing, or like feels like a gap that should be filled. And there's a lot of room, I think with all these questions, we're trying to find the most distilled version that we can to kind of ship a meaningful first version of this game. So there's nowhere near all the potential unlocked, but Ranger progression is super central, and it includes a lot of the things you said. It's leveling up is connected to your class and synergy points that you get to allocate. There's other systems connected to those synergy points also, but you're leveling up, allocating those. Those are connected to abilities, both passive and active abilities that change the way that you play. And then, also connected to Illuvial progress, drone progress, quest progress, like all of the progression that makes your character more powerful, whether that's gear, Illuvials, drones, whatever, is all going to determine what sort of content you can do, what kind of rewards you have available, that kind of thing. So huge piece for us, Ranger progression.
Yeah, something I wanted to double click on was we didn't even ask about drones, and I'm not going to go into the drones, but the drone progression is quite a cool thing as well. So for the player, you kind of hit on a really, really important point, is that we are the Ranger, right? Like, we're not the Illuvials, we are the Ranger. So in terms of making that feel very unique, like are there specific class paths? Like, is there a way that I could be, hey, I'm just going to be a tank? Am I able to switch from a tank build to a support build? Uh, yeah, like, am I able to do both at the same time? What I know that there's still a lot of work to do, and we're still working on the vertical slice. But again, in your mind, what's the
Yeah.
vision you see there?
I mean, yes, there's a lot of work to do, and we're sorting through some of the like kind of limitations and strategies for setting up that system now as we're playing it more and more. But the idea, the vision is a really open system where you can definitely lean into something that feels kind of familiar as those roles. You could be an earth bulwark, you could be a fire rogue, and those have meanings that feel very familiar. But also the system is really open in the way you allocate or earn those points, which could be from leveling up, but could also be that they're granted from your Illuvial, or could be that they're granted from your gear, can create all kinds of hybrid combinations. So maybe you want cooldown reduction from water, but you want some direct damage from fire because blah, 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 that you can kind of craft combos and hybrids that make sense to you. And as you invest further in any given synergy or class, you get access to composites, which have their own class feel. You get access to certain gear, certain Illuvials, and it's all very fluid and customizable. One thing that we're definitely running into is that if the kind of combinatory nature of it gets too out of control, then balance and development become challenging. If you need, some VFX work to support every weapon, which every weapon has its own attacks that are meaningful and separate from every other weapon, and then those have to play nice with all of the abilities across every class, and you know what I mean. It can get kind of sketchy. So we're trying to figure out what the right balance is between that open system where you have kind of complete control and customization versus something that's like realistic for us to make and balance. But yes, to go back to your question, you can be a tank, but you can also be, a tank that does some damage, or a tank that's good in a certain environment or whatever.
Yeah, interesting.
So to extend on that, I think it's really important we talk about the Illuvials, okay? Like, for me personally, the Illuvials should be at the heart of Illuvium in every single way. So how do Illuvials actually fit into this progression? Do they grow with you? Like, will your Axodon level up its own skill tree or something like that? Or are they more like collectible companions that you swap in and out that affect your progression trees? Or are they separate and synergize with it? How do you envision this?
So for right now, they are companions that have an influence on how you fight and on your progression rather than having their own fully developed progression. But that, I think, is an obligation for us to build out. We just have focused so far on the ranger progression a lot, on the encounter design. Like there's so many pieces here, and we've kind of, prioritized certain ones because they're the ones that felt like they needed the most help. I totally agree with you. Illuvials are the core of this experience, and they need and will have both a huge impact on your own progression. Like, as an example, something that we're excited about and talked about a lot is that if you are going to allocate water synergy points for your character, you might need materials that come from burning water Illuvials, and other versions of stuff like this where you need to collect certain Illuvials to accomplish certain things in your ranger progression. We haven't developed as much of the Illuvial's own progression and how you might customize or kind of progress with a companion that means a lot to you or is really perfect for your build or whatever. But that's I think it's an obligatory piece that we need to figure out. It's just right now that we're trying to iron out the ranger side of it. And the companion, I mean, like you said, you have a stable of companions, you swap them, they do different things. And that has a lot to do with your play style and your build. So there's pieces of it there, but there needs more time for sure in figuring out what alluvial leveling and alluvial customization looks like long term.
Cool. I wanted to ask, man. I don't know if I don't have it later on, but I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask, but I will anyway. I believe, I don't know if I'm saying something I shouldn't, but I believe Kieran has kind of leaked this out publicly that alluvials, for them to have a little bit more to feel a little bit more dynamic in battles and such, there are going to be different skills and abilities for them. So you're nodding and saying yes.
Yeah, I
What can you
feel
share about that?
I can at least share like what we're trying to do. So one thing that we're feeling in playing and testing right now is that if we just import the arena versions of Illuvials with their attacks and Omegas,
It's bland as
combat,
hell.
it's not bland as hell, but we are trying to make combat as dynamic and exciting as we can. And there needs to be a little more variation, a little more pressure to react and adjust to what they're doing. And so additional abilities seem like an easy, like kind of natural thing to do. So yeah, right now there's some additional attacks getting built for every Illuvial that we're planning for VS. Those range a lot. There's like an Atlas water wall shield that blocks projectiles and does damage. There's simpler kind of high crit attacks for Volantes, whatever. We're looking at things to just make it so that because it means so much. It's both an enemy that you need to capture. And so for that, there needs to be pressure on the Ranger to get you to move, to make it feel exciting and dangerous. And then as a companion, it should feel awesome. Like it should be doing a bunch of stuff that's cool that you can, potentially leverage in the way that you move around to fight. And so we're building up some extra stuff just as a first step. I don't think it's the whole story, but yeah, we're adding some stuff.
Before Scoriox takes the next question, this reminds me very much. I think I haven't asked you your age, but I think we're about the same age. But
I'm much younger.
Much younger. Yeah, definitely. It reminds me you just saying that about like having the enemies making the player have a little bit more urgency and stuff, and then you as the Ranger having your companions feel like they're powerful. What that reminds me of is Pokemon. Like you have the TV show. When you watch the TV show, Pikachu's weaving and dodging, doing all this crazy stuff, and you play the video games, and it's just turn-based, quick attack. And so you kind of want to capture the feeling of the TV show in the gameplay. So yeah, fully agree.
Exactly.
I like how because this is the one thing I wanted from Illuvium. Okay, so it does make me very happy to hear you say that you're going to have more control over your Illuvials in one way or another. But really, the big thing for me is you enable some level of skill expression there, which I don't think you get otherwise. We're in a standard like ARPG without direct control. Like I bring back to Pal World, because Pal World was pretty much you have a gun and you have your creature and the creature does whatever it does. You have no control over it, right? And what that made me feel like was like, okay, well, I just need to dodge attacks and shoot. Those are my only two commands. There's really nothing else going on. But with Illuvials and their own abilities and dynamic control over maybe their movement or something like that, I feel like you get a lot deeper where you go like, okay, your Illuvial can cast a shield, but it's over there. So you got to make sure you're behind the shield, or you stay with your Illuvial, you stay away from your Illuvial, and have all those sorts of decision trees that then add skill expression to the game. Now, the hard part is not making it too complex, so it's not ridiculously hard to play. But that is what excites me personally, and I don't know how it's going to look, but I'm hoping you guys are going deeper down that path. But again, that's tricky, but I like the idea of it being easier in the future. Like it starts off hard because you're going to do all these abilities for 150 Illuvials or whatever, right? But then every new Illuvial, you can just start off with the 2 or 3 abilities or whatever it is, and it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, we're trying to find that balance too. We've as we're kind of playing and testing, trying to figure out how much burden for control and activity makes sense for the player. And I don't think we found the perfect line yet, but we've just converted Omegas from triggering on full energy like they do in Arena to being activated by the Ranger. So that's something on your ability bar. And then having positional control means, being able to determine where they're at. Then you can trigger Omega. Maybe you can trigger the other attack. Maybe you can swap. And when you swap an Omega triggers, there's room for a lot of mastery and skill expression. But it has to be balanced against, if you also have 3 affinity abilities and 2 class abilities and a basic attack and you know what I mean? It can get too heavy quick. So we're trying to find the right kind of tuning for that.
Yeah, for sure. So the next thing is I want to talk about equipment and gear. Okay, so you've talked about bringing ARPG style loot rolls and mods into the overworld, which I think we definitely need because we need some end game systems in here, right? How will gear progression actually work in Illuvium?
I mean, how it will work in VS and how it is kind of envisioned long term will be a little different because we just don't have the time to build a truly like generative dynamic item system. But we're gonna fake it a little bit to get the feel, and that already is working pretty well. So yeah, we have if you think of Diablo, we have some kind of affix system. We have basic stats that can be influenced by gear. The simplest things would be like HP or damage, but that also means each elemental damage type, related resistances, energy, HP regen, and plus a bunch of like potential secondary effects like damage penetration or haste or whatever. That stuff can all show up as modifiers on gear. Those affixes are all broken into tiers. The rarity and frequency of those tiers depends on the rarity and level of the item. You just have like a pretty massive, an RPG item system where we're not strictly saying like every time you get Thunder Fury, a Thunder Fury is exactly this. We're saying there's this wide range of potential with items. There's a crafting system underneath that to let you manipulate the results of what you get from drops. So you can either upgrade or you can swap affixes or you can do all kinds of things to customize what you got. And then, like you say, that opens up so much replayability potential. We can have both rare drop things, rare drop base items or rarities, but then we can also have variants in the things that are on, in the stats that are on that gear, at least to some extent. And that makes the item chase pretty exciting. And I think that also plays so well with a Web3 environment where, to me, the dream for a Web3 environment is not necessarily limited, run special items, but an actual ecosystem where truly special things can emerge. Yeah. And then those can be exchanged and collected, and the Illuvials are the obvious piece of that because that's already working, but putting items on the table as a potential there is exciting as well. I think this system supports that.
For sure. Scoriox, again, I'm just going to jump in real quick before you take it. No, I completely agree with that, man. In terms, I'll say this very quickly. The reason I actually got into Web3 gaming was I used to grind a lot of Borderlands 3. And there was a gun in Borderlands 3 called the Yellow Cake, and I would grind for hours trying to get the best variant of it. Right. And once I stopped playing, I was like, oh, that was a complete waste of time. And then I learned about this thing, and I was like, oh, what if I could sell it for even $2 or $1? It doesn't that's how it clicked for me. So the fact that you're thinking about not just the modifiers as variations, but also the stats as variations. Obviously, that's long-term vision, and it's going to take a lot of time to build everything that out. But
we're not going to be there in this next 2 months, but that I agree. I love that example.
Next 3 months.
that example feels like the job of this kind of ecosystem is to give you real agency over what happens once that work results in you finding something super sick, or you create something, or you create a strategy that lets you get that, whatever it is, but then you get to realize that value in whatever way you want. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I do still think that, I do still think there is room for, you'll notice this a bit, Stephen, I cut Scoriox off a lot. The comment's going to get into that as well. It always does. I do think there is room for like the legendary one-off items as well. Like definitely there's room for that. But yes, that shouldn't be the only kind of focus and say that's how this ecosystem survives. It can't thrive that way. So Scoriox.
I was just going to ask the same thing. I was going to ask about legendary one-of-one items and things like that. I know Big Time has this sort of stuff. It's really popular. Obviously, in Borderlands, it's a really big part of the gameplay. And I personally play Path of Exile 2. It's really fun when you get those legendary items. And you're like, okay, this is this thing. It has its own unique ability and things like that. Obviously, this takes a lot of development time. But what are your plans for loot? So you got loot drops from enemies and things like that. Kieran said that before. What do you think about loot drops for bosses and stuff? How are you approaching that differently in any way, or what's the current strategy for that?
I mean, the most, this came up in town halls and stuff, but Path of Exile is the easiest example for me. And like you say, I think just like with Borderlands or something else, there's like broad loot tables of stuff that's kind of generically generated, which can be very awesome. But there's also stuff that's specific to a certain boss that feels really cool to get. And you can have the mixing of those two, to me, is really powerful. So you have a few items that can only drop from a certain boss, so you've got to farm that boss, and that makes the boss replayable and exciting. But also the values on the items it drops or the specific modifiers it picks vary. So it's not just getting the Borderlands gun, it's getting the good Borderlands gun, getting one with high value rolls. And I think that fits us super well. I don't see why we can't do that. For VS, we're drawing up, a themed kind of legendary loot table for the boss, but that can still have variable values and affixes as part of the gear that it can drop.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be killer. All right. So let's shift a little bit from progression more into the combat systems. I know we kind of alluded to it already. Let's dive in a little bit deeper now. So before the stream, earlier in both of our days, because I know what time it is now for you, we were talking in DMs a little bit, and I brought up the MDA game design framework, the mechanic dynamics aesthetic thing about how the rules affect the player's actions, affects the player's feelings. And the example that I've given on the stream before, and I will here, is Doom. How the mechanic is that the enemies run away, making you as the player chase them, making you feel way more aggressive and more badass because you're not running away like a little B-word, like you're gunning them down. So in terms of your vision, we've kind of talked about it being dynamic, but let's just say using that, not going fully into the NBA thing, but what's the feel that you would want from the combat that we have? How do you want to play to feel? Do you want it to be super tense like it is in Sekiro or one of those, what's the crazy difficult game? Elden Ring. Do you kind of want that feel to it? Do you want it to be much more casual friendly, like a Pal World? Where on that spectrum of feelings do you want the player to sit?
I mean, this is obviously a big question and something we've been trying to feel out, but it's a blend, I would say. So one thing is we're working with, when we come in, for one thing, MMO has all this connotation that combat is like a standstill ability rotation where you're maximizing DPS. We know we don't want that. And there had been really cool, I have no idea how much you guys know or have played like in Illuvium history, but there's pretty sweet prototypes of combat systems in the project from
are you talking about Breach?
Talking about Breach.
Yeah.
Breach was fun. I don't know if people have played it or seen it, but it was really fun.
They never let us play it. I still will never forgive them for that.
Well, you're going to get to play a piece of it now because of the MMO. Because a big part of what we did is say, hey, this combat feels rad. Let's integrate a lot of that and then tweak it. Add a lot more MMO-y abilities. And there's other things. I wouldn't say Breach was all the way to like a Souls-like in terms of skill, but it was set up maybe more like Hades, where it's a little more casual feeling, a little more beat 'em up, but it's still skill expression or skill ceiling's really high, where you can pretty much avoid all damage if you're super good. And we knew we couldn't have that because as an MMO, to make sure that the gear and the skills and all that stuff is relevant. Like if we want a healer, it's important people take damage. And so we wanted to slide Breach a little away from raw skill ceiling towards MMO, towards like there's damage you can't avoid. There's lots of, something like Wildstar is something we talk about a lot, where there's big telegraphed abilities and you do a lot of moving around to avoid them, very positional and quick, but more fun and light than something like a Souls-like. So we're shooting for something in between there, and we're trying to feel out the best balance. But I would think action-y, we talked about Genshin a lot. We talked about Hades, some other kind of, maybe even something like Warframe, like Destiny, things that are like shooter kind of RPGs where it's really mobile, but it's not it's not Souls-like in terms of the punishment being a little slow or being a little bit of a dad gamer. And so we're looking for a middle ground there, based largely on Breach, which seems promising.
So actually take us deeper on that. How does the Ranger actually fight, and what makes the moment-to-moment gameplay exciting? We saw in Breach that things are attacking you, but maybe they're auto-locking on you, so you got to dodge them at the right time and things like that. Is there is there more to it? Take us through what makes it exciting.
I mean, I would take that you just described from Breach. You have really fast movement, like you do in Overworld. The Ranger moves really quick. We've definitely toned down some of the movement options because they make the role pretty small, and that's not helpful when it comes to like content progression or sense of scale or world building. So that's turned down a little, but still the movement is very quick. And then so you're moving fast. You take what you said from Breach. There's stuff flying around. You're trying to dodge attacks and move to the side. In terms of like, if we're being more specific and technical, it's collision based. So rather than like there's, I do an attack and then anything in front of me gets hit or whatever, it's actually based on where the sword travels through the air. There's some tuning we're doing there still to figure out how to make it forgiving enough, but it's heavily animation based. So your positioning is super important. If you're swinging a bunch of attacks with the sword has different attacks and different collisions than an axe would, than a hammer would, than a gun would. So that determines a lot of your spacing and play style. And then layered on that is like a more ARPG, like a more kind of, if you think of, Diablo skills or Path of Exile skills where you're throwing fireballs or doing ground stomps or whatever that are covering more of an area, definitely think of more like spell attacks. Those are complementing that more action-based kind of Hades style combat. So there's a lot going on, but
I think it's interesting you said all the weapons have unique actions and things like that, because that's like my favorite thing of Monster Hunter. You spend a lot of time on one weapon trying to master it because they all play so differently. Now, obviously, that's much, much deeper. But are we talking about they're all going to have such unique attack chains and stuff that it's going to matter when you're actually playing the game? Yeah.
Like, just as an example right now, the way that the sword is implemented. So right now for each weapon, there's I want to be careful with vocabulary so it doesn't make you think of different stuff. There's a basic attack and a strong attack. The basic attack has a chain. The animation in each part of the chain is different. So for the sword, it's like a triple slash where each slash does damage. The timing is a little different for each one. The area is a little different for each one based on how the swing works. The strong attack is like this kind of jump, jump, slam. Flip, slam thing. Yeah. It's probably the Omega from Arena. I'm not sure, but then like the dagger is a like series of 6 much shorter range attacks. Like that basic attack is comboed, it's faster, it's quicker, it has smaller areas, and that would be the case for each weapon we add. So yeah, they are each different. I wouldn't think about necessarily. One thing we're trying to figure out how to balance is how much do we lean into that weapon-based attack system and build up a lot of different options for sword attacks versus having this sort of basic and strong stuff that each weapon does be pretty consistent and be kind of your like go-to dependable thing, and then stack the affinity and synergy or the affinity and class abilities on top. Because there's a trade-off there. The more spell-like affinity abilities still fill up your time and need mastery, but they're very different from the weapon-based attacks that have those specific animations and collisions. We can do a fireball, and it doesn't matter what weapon you have; everyone can use it. But if we add a sword attack, that's only relevant for swords. So we're trying to figure out, how much of each to put in.
Yeah, for sure. So, something I wanted to just again double down on was you were talking about we don't want it to be as punishing as Elden Ring. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Souls-like. Yeah, sorry. I don't play any of those games. It's not for me. or and then you've also got something like Hades. So in terms of, again, a lot of this is your vision for this, right? Is how do you see that being the case? Are you trying to just slow players down that they're forced to being hit, and then you need the support healer to heal them? Do you envision it being just so chaotic that you just have to get hit at some point? Which of those two are you more leaning towards?
More towards chaotic.
Yeah, cool.
And more
Best
towards
friends. We're best friends.
definitely not like debilitating you and forcing you to take damage, but yeah, more towards chaotic when there's a lot going on. Like the boss fight we have right now is
yes, yes,
brutal and then chaotic. And we've been trying to figure out, like, do we, at one point we're like, all right, there's someone got good enough at this to not really take much damage at all, and that's not going to work. There needs to be some. It doesn't need to be the majority of the damage, but there needs to be something there to put pressure on your build. So what options do we have? Is that like wide AE stuff that you can't avoid? Is it ads that have homing attacks that you just need to deal with quickly? Ultimately, there was a little of those things we added, but mostly it was just chaos. Like we made the some of the other elements that were already there come out a little faster or happen in combo with something else. And now the boss is very difficult, and
yes,
you need strong gear, and if you don't have it, you die over and over and over. So
yeah,
music's my ears as well.
Real quick as well, for anyone that is watching, there is going to be a little clip of that boss fight coming out later on Crypto Stash's channel with Kieran's AMA. So yeah, you'll kind of get a feel of what we're talking about.
Nice. I hope that is exciting. I think it's in like a really rad place right now. It's feeling super fun, and
yeah,
a lot of the art kind of surrounding it, the environment and stuff's been getting filled out lately. So it's starting to look super super cool.
So talking about the chaos of the battle, how does the dynamic swapping of your Illuvial companions mid-battle change up the strategy as you're playing through this and try to maybe embrace the chaos or avoid it or whatever else?
I mean, I think it could, I think we'll keep developing this, but it can definitely solve problems that are time sensitive. So if you're low on health or you're tanking damage when you weren't before, getting out something tanky or something supportive is going to go a long way. So just swapping to something that fits the role you're doing at that moment, and then making sure that the encounters, force change, that the encounters are dynamic enough that you're not just sitting in the back throwing damage the whole time, but at some points you need to take damage, at some points you need to move faster, at some points you need to heal, then there's pressure to swap. But also we've talked about like having just straightforward incentives to swap. If we trigger abilities on swap, or we refill Illuvial HP on swap, then you have just like a constant thing to optimize where like, I burned all the abilities I burned all the cooldowns on the Illuvial that's out now, but my cooldown on the ability to swap is up. So I'm throwing something else in because it's going to trigger some stuff for me.
I know it's a very, very different game, but in Smash Ultimate, the Pokemon trainer, they incentivize it by giving you extra couple of frames of invulnerability during the swap. So it's like small things like that for sure.
Yeah. Different. We wouldn't do exactly that, but I think that like you earn something just by making the swap makes it something you need to keep track of and keep in mind, and then play different around each Illuvial you have out. So just like in Pokemon, or in Smash, you switch, and then your style has to switch a little the way you move around with that. Pokemon changes.
Yeah, for sure. So Matt, regarding the we talked about the boss battles, where the raid boss, where we talked about the combat in general. How do you see multiplayer, co-op, and actual raids? Like, how do you see that synergize with the combat system that you have? Like with the chaos, is it just chaos multiplied? Are you picturing that there's boss scaling dependent on how many players there are? Like, how do you see that?
So we've talked a lot about keeping fairly small scale in terms of the way multiplayer works for combat, just because it is fast and chaotic. Like we're not talking 40-person raids. We're talking much smaller scale. But having a lot of even the abilities, the like kind of early set of abilities and progression we designed for the Ranger right now, there's a lot of like affect other players around you this way, reduce cooldowns of your party, do healing for your party, increase damage on friendly Illuvials and Rangers in some range, making sure that there's like a lot to do for other people that are working together with. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. The more macro scale multiplayer is definitely going to be more economy focused, more about trade, more about social systems, that kind of stuff. I will say that the scaling question is a little open still. That's a tough one. I really dislike like over the top. I think it can really undermine like immersion and kind of sense of like how a universe works when there's like arbitrary scaling that shifts.
Yeah.
If every time you go into something with 4 people, the HP gets multiplied by 4, and it feels like something that takes you out of like this thing being real and forces you to optimize, where you're like, wow, we don't want a 4th person because the way the scaling works doesn't make it, you don't do enough damage to justify the extra HP you add. But that said, if everything just stays the same and there's a lot of zerging going on, that doesn't work either. So that's something we have to sort through still. We're definitely designing the boss encounter we have now to kind of assume small groups should be challenged by it. But there isn't like a, an enemy scaling that works generically across the whole world or for any of the specific encounters so far. But that will need to be addressed.
The goal is to try to find a balance there, because I agree. Like you can't just do one-to-one scaling. That just takes you out. But then you also can't keep it as is, because like you say, you've got the zerging issue. So I think you need that. Yeah, we need to find a nice balance in between there, because I think that is important for the feel of the player, where it should feel like it is harder, but it should still feel achieved. Like you want to feel accomplished about beating it. If it's super easy, stays the same, you've just got more people, it loses a bit of the fun. You kind of still want to feel challenged and you're overcoming something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think the better option is, I remember from the Monster Hunter Tri days, where certain fights you're not really designed to take on solo. If you want to, it's like a personal challenge for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But they're really designed to be taken on as a 4 or 5 man squad or whatever it might be. And I think those are fine. Where they're not designed to scale down with you. They're like an extra. They're like a Nuzlocke challenge in Pokemon or whatever. Like they're just like, if you really want to suffer, then go suffer. That's fine. But it's not built for that.
And that's sort of what's happened internally with the boss encounter that we've worked on. It's really designed with the idea that there's at least a few people doing it at a time. But Perry became obsessed with soloing it, and did try after try after try after try until he got it down enough that he could solo it. And that, like you're saying, that can be cool. Like I'm not sure that's a long-term solution, but designing it for small scale seems like a good for somewhere between 3 and 5 people, setting things up sort of with that balance as the bar, and then letting people that really want to go crazy try to do it themselves. I think that for now at least that's fine.
We've got a few questions in the chat that I think are really conducive to this discussion, actually. The first one is, how many Illuvials can you have out at any given time? I know this has been discussed probably endlessly internally and even in the community and stuff like that. I would like to see 2, but with 4-player being a staple of the game, I could definitely understand it being 1. But the other part of that I want to ask is, we know that you're probably going to be able to nickname Illuvials and stuff like that, right? Do you know if that's going to come with the vertical slice? But more importantly, when you nickname your Illuvial, is it going to show up to other players? Is it going to have like a little name tag above it? Because that sort of connection with the other players in the social environment, I think, is actually pretty valuable.
Agreed. I don't have anything to say about nicknaming Illuvials. We have been like really focused on like making Illuvials attack correctly, and not gotten to a lot of the more UXy and social features. Really important, and there's a lot of stuff called out that we want to do. But one thing that sort of fits in the same category in my mind is there's a lot of multiplayer UX support that's just not there right now. We don't have a party system, for example, and that's important. You need to be able to go to the same zone with your friends. You need to have shared chat. You need to be able to see the status of their HP. So we're building up a lot of the required, multiplayer UX and social stuff as soon as we can. And I think there's a lot of much more fun, personalized social features that we need to look at ASAP after, but we're not super close to that. As far as 1 or 2 or more Illuvials, we are set up for 1 right now. Having more has come up and sounds really fun, and it's definitely not off the table. It's right now, if you go play, it's 1, but we'll see. Not saying no to that for sure. That sounds chaotic, but cool.
We did test it a while back. I don't know if you tested it with multiple, Steven, but yeah, like me, myself, Dick, and a couple of guys. We had like 7 or 8 Illuvial. I think the whole thing just crashed, just bugged out. There's just too much happening. So
I think there's a really funny trade-off to 2+ Illuvials where like you can't really have enough keys on your keyboard to control them all. And so you can either have a highly controlled Illuvial or like sending out your entire team at once. And honestly, I think a highly controlled Illuvial is maybe more enjoyable or more gameplay thing, where if you just send them all out, they're just going to win. It's how fun is that really? So I think 1 is probably good as a baseline, but 2 could be a really fun game mode in the future or something like that. Either way, I really appreciate the honesty on the topic. And now here is a topic that's really big for me, okay? And it's Illuvial capture systems. I got back into Pokemon Go recently, and I forgot how surprisingly fun that little mini game is, how the circle's closing, you're trying to hit an excellent throw or whatever on the Pokemon. I forgot just how replayable something so stupid and so simple actually is inside the game. You think back to Pal World as well, where it's just like trying to get them low without killing them and then throw the Pal Sphere or whatever to try and capture them in the ball, and you have different odds and percentage chances and stuff. Kind of like even in the Pokemon games where you're trying to get them low on health without killing them and stuff like that. Do you have any interesting capture mechanics in the game, since really it should be at the core and the heart of Illuvium?
Andre would love everything you're saying right now. He'd be so excited to hear what you're saying about this. He agrees with you completely. We have worked on capture mechanics. There's at the core, very similar. You need to fight the Illuvial, get it to low HP, how low it is, and what shard you're using influence capture chance. There's a short and hopefully satisfying minigame. Like you're talking about, you need to enter Nether site and line up some capture UI as well as you can to increase your chance of capturing. And then if that goes well, you get it. There's something a lot like what you're describing. I think it probably needs more tuning, but it's all there and working and feels cool. Nether side is something we kind of want to lean into and add more features that are linked up to Nether site. That feels like a really kind of sweet kind of world building mode and like connection to narrative and quests and stuff like that, and also to manipulating Illuvials, maybe seeing weak spots in bosses, stuff like that. So there's more to do there, but for now, capture is kind of the center for that. The other thing I would say about capture is we would love to have, especially towards endgame or mid-game, the encounter part, not the capture UI and the kind of ball throwing part, but the fighting have a lot more meat around it. So making more like closer to endgame, Illuvium encounters look more like mini bosses where they have kind of mechanics or environments to support how big of a deal it is that you're finding and trying to capture this Illuvial. We probably don't have scope to build out much of that for VS, but we talked a lot about that and how we could make that look cool. There's a few really sweet pitches and concepts for how the encounter part itself could really get emphasized and be very cinematic and exciting. But also the capture part has got a lot of attention.
Yeah. So what you're proposing is we walk in the tall grass, and then when we get we find an alluvial, we go no, like in Pokemon, right? That's exactly what you're referring to.
You're on to me.
I'd be keen to run into an alluvial and then a bunch of those rifts open up and all of its allies jump out and just pandemonium. That's what I always imagined it would be. But
you have a real spidey sense for this topic, because that's not far off from one of Roger's really cool proposals about this, is that interdimensional friends would back up the alluvial and you'd suddenly have a very chaotic scene. So
that's what we like to hear. So, so we've actually got a question from Spoon in the chat. He's saying, how often can we catch an alluvial? I know we might go into that a little bit more with the whole free-to-play experience and how we want that and like all of that. But in your mind, in your vision here, what are you seeing when it comes to that? How often can you catch alluvials? Is it something that you have to wait? I know I was going to weave it into this. You floated an idea about the eggs and the incubation. Obviously, that would have a timer on that, a cooldown on that. Are you thinking that with the alluvials? What are you thinking?
I mean, okay, there's a few things here. For the time being, take that egg thing off the table. That's
cool, perfect.
That's I think there might be a world for and the entire topic of kind of how is monetization or your kind of behavior as a customer affecting your progression timing. That's like a big can of worms, which I don't have all the answers to this second, but we can maybe get back to that a little bit. But take that out. The way it stands now, and I think the way it will stay, is you can capture alluvials as often as you find them. And that's a little semantic, but how often you find them is a big question, and something that we've discussed a lot and are trying to tune, because it's easy for attitudes to range a lot and for goals to conflict. It's like, this is a world that's about alluvials. They're, for one, these really cool assets that we want to show off and want to fill up and make the world really vibrant. But also we want them to be special and be these like chase things that can be very exciting to catch and can feel like meaningful to hunt for. So we've talked a lot about how to balance that. Right now, we have a Brightland Steppes that's populated mostly by non-alluvial enemies. And then we have alluvial enemies roaming or being in specific locations, somewhat unpredictably, but not rarely, not like you can't find alluvials. But it's like it breaks up the a session of exploring. You're killing enemies, find an alluvial, awesome. Hopefully it's the one you want, or an exciting one, or a high stage one, and then you go back to killing enemies, and then you find another one. But what that frequency looks like and what limitations there are on it are still being tuned for sure.
Cool. Yep. I want to move on to something. We don't need to go super deep into it. I know you've addressed it quite a few times. Just more a clarification if anything's changed regarding the assets that players already have, like the alluvials that players already own. I know you had previously discussed that we might have gym badges in Pokemon, but for us a level cap where you need to be a certain level to unlock accessibility to alluvials. Has that changed much? Is that still the idea?
That hasn't changed much. We haven't built out really any of that so far, but I think that the general philosophy is still there, that there will be some kind of progression requirement on the Ranger. Maybe that's the amount of affinity stacks you have, or the levels, or something that makes it so that you have to be invested to some extent in the Ranger to use the alluvial. That could be combined with, I was talking to Perry about this yesterday, that could be combined with scaling down the alluvial power based on your level. So you don't have no access to it. It might just have limited power. And then I think the third piece is the alluvial progression itself. So you can bring in a purchased asset, but then there's like a kind of a bonding relationship with you and alluvial, where the more time you spend actually playing with it, the more of its power it gets to realize. And using a combination of those things, we can make it so that you can definitely bring those assets in. There will be big incentive to go and collect them to bring them in. but they won't just obliterate the meaning of any of our progression and let you skip needing to kind of go through some real investment in the game. So
Awesome.
that hasn't, for now, that's not because VS is focused on feel, focused on some of the core systems. That's not something we've started building, but but those are the kind of
that's
philosophies,
awesome.
I guess.
No, fully.
Well, I just really quickly, before we move on to the next bit, I just really want to quickly ask, NFTs, anti-botting, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Illuvials you capture in the game, how will you be preventing people from just going in and farming it for free and just minting 1,000 NFTs? And not to mention the how unscalable that would be on the blockchain side of things and stuff as well. Will you be capturing non-NFT Illuvials in any way, or kind of what's your approach to that?
That is, I think there's a lot of pieces to this. It's complicated. It has some to do with, potential progression limitations that have to do with more standard monetization stuff like subscription. I think a piece we've talked about a lot that could be really helpful is that, you're capturing non-NFT Illuvials. There's specific minting steps, and that's where customer behavior becomes important. So we try to create a healthy game economy, regardless of what goes to chain or not. We are constantly talking about introducing more syncs for Illuvials, more syncs in general. So there's reasons to use up things you collect in the world, so there isn't this constant hyperinflation going on. But also as a guardrail, when you want to take things to chain, there's a step there where your customer behavior matters. Like either there's a some kind of spend step to do the minting, or there's if you're a subscriber, you're doing some other thing, you're allowed to do that. But hit it from a few angles. It's not something where there's an obvious silver bullet, but
cool. I'm so happy you're talking about that, man, because one of the things that when I started learning about game design was the economy and syncs, and 100%. I think we definitely need to do that. So regarding the syncs in general, I think that was one of the biggest issues that we had. We had all the taps for Illuvials, but we just had, again, inflation, but there was no drains, no sinks, nothing to really balance out the economy. So what are some of the ideas of the sinks? Because we were legitimately left with, I won't say no sinks.
I mean, it's tough.
Very
it's
little.
tough.
But what are you thinking about? What are some angles that you're thinking of? Obviously, I'm not going to ask you and say, hey, give us answers right now. Just in general, kind of what do you think?
I mean, I think there's some really cool examples we talked about. A lot of it, if you have the Ranger's power or the Illuvial's power as things that make a big difference. So you want the Ranger to have better gear. You want him to have more synergy or class points or composite points. You want the Illuvial to level up, whatever. Anything that's going to lead to you being more powerful in the game. Syncs can be connected to that progress. So maybe you need to burn Illuvials to allocate synergy points. Maybe you need to burn Illuvials to level up your favorite Illuvial. Maybe you need to burn Illuvials as part of crafting for gear. Something we talked about early on a lot is converting Illuvials. So you have a really dope Illuvial that has some kind of, whether it's the TPI or it's an ability or something that is really important to your character, that can be kind of converted to some kind of gem that goes into a socket that can be an affix on gear. So you have some Illuvials as companions, but you have others that are actually converted to components of your gear. Any of these things can act as a sync. And, whether that's materials as gear crafting or any of these other examples. And as I think as soon as that's on your mind as something that needs to be part of what's going on, it's pretty easy to find places to put it.
I think that was one of the issues that it wasn't on, and I'm happy to say this because I was on the team. It wasn't something that I think we did have top of mind, which is why we kind of found ourselves in the situation that we ended up in. But okay, so this is actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you for a long time. I've spoken to a couple of the guys on the team about it. Jackson, the video editor on the marketing team, we've spoken about it. We found this anime called Shangri-La Frontier. I don't know if you're an anime guy, but it's essentially it's an anime about an MMO RPG that everyone in Japan is in love with, and they've got like these 7 titans, or I think that's what they're called, and you've got your general raid bosses, but you've got these 7 uh like legendary things that they essentially one shot kill you, but if you beat them, you get crazy legendary one-on-ones. In terms of bosses, is that a possibility, or are we kind of just obviously not for vertical slice long term?
Are we going to put your anime boss into the game? Is that your question?
Yes, essentially. This is a very, very, very selfish question, but I think in terms of like end game content, challenge runs, like things that are so impossible that it could take the community 3 months, 6 months to defeat, that shit could be cool to have. I don't know. Like it does add. It is a selfish question, but there is also a reason why I'm asking it.
No, I mean that sounds cool. Endgame systems are a really fun topic to me. I mean, we've talked about the different regions we have now as kind of the solid parts of the world that you work your way through, and they stay, consistent in terms of difficulty, and so you can move through them a little differently depending on how big your group is or what kind of content you're interested in. But then eventually getting to an end game where there needs to be something replayable, whether you talk about Greater Rifts in Diablo or I forget what they're called, the Crucibles or whatever in Destiny. Like you need something that you can do regularly, and I think you also need like pinnacle. You need like, this is something that I'm doing all of that replayable endgame to maximize my gear, to get my Illuvial highest level, whatever, so that there's this
thing that you can overcome.
I mean, this is how like Path of Exile has these pinnacle bosses. They're extremely difficult. There's Uber versions of them that take now people do it quickly, maybe not 3 months, but I think any of the games you feel nostalgic about, in EverQuest or in whatever, any of the things over the years, wow, there's like these your anime bosses there. I think your anime boss is here in this game.
Yes.
We just have to build out that range of challenge. I think we're trying to get the most bread and butter stuff worked out now, make the combat feel good. But yes, long term there should be like this wide range. And something this is turning into a bit of a ramble, but like something in an economy focused game. I mean, I'm coming from Eve. I think this is true in other games with really healthy and interesting economies, is having like a real diversity of activity, letting people specialize. I can be someone who's more of a resource farmer, someone who's more of an alluvial capture, someone who's more of an end game boss farmer, and setting up that content to cater to different skill levels, different time investments per day, this kind of thing seems critical. So I would think as part of that, there would be like, really awesome, super difficult stuff.
So the thing that I'm getting a little bit stuck on, so you talked a little bit about you're going to be challenging these bosses every single day. Maybe there's going to be a few different ones. So that really helps with the end game content, which is really good. But I think a really good question is, what separates the bosses and or the gameplay of Illuvium from other MMOs, ARPGs, and things like that? Like I've seen a few snippets from the boss fight and stuff like that. Besides having Illuvials and maybe they're controlling them and stuff, I think that's a really good separating factor. Is there anything else in particular that makes Illuvium just different, play different, more interesting, more unique than some other games?
I mean, I do think it to me, the difference is in the combinations of elements we're using. I think some of the systems are really unique. I think Illuvials are really unique. I think that some of the progression stuff we've built up, this kind of class and synergy system is unique. Having kind of it be this action RPG, but it's where you're managing a lot of stuff. Of course, there's minion builds and some things, and there's gonna be parallels. But I don't know. I think to me, it's this I don't see an action creature collector RPG with deep progression that, it doesn't feel like a combo that has the IP and has the feel that we do, that there's something out there that I think of. I see pieces of things that we are, getting definitely very inspired from. But I think that the intersection of the stuff we have is very special.
I think the closest we got to that combination that you kind of spoke about was Power World, which is why everyone lost their mind about it. That was the closest we got to it, right? Because all of us grew up on Pokemon. They fumbled the bag. I say they fumbled. They didn't fumble the bag. They're still making the bag. But in terms of like the gameplay, they never really evolved. We're starting to see it now. But yeah, like, so Power World was the first thing that was like, oh my God, this is kind of the direction we wanted. But obviously, like you're talking about the depth of progression, it didn't really have that at the time as well. So yeah, no, I completely get it. We could be the ones to do that. But all right, Steven, you've given us a lot of time, man. Appreciate all the energy. I know it's super late for you, so I'm going to try and squeeze out a little bit of information that I can in a quick fire round.
All right.
Essentially, I'm just going to give you I'm just going to say a topic. I want you to give us your honest thoughts on what percentage they are completed, because everyone's going to ask you, when is the vertical slice ready? Let's just go bit by bit on
they are
all the things.
When we say percentage completed, we're talking about like it could go into the public's hands, not necessarily like it's fully completed, public release, everyone gets in and plays it. It's not a beta or anything, that sort of stuff. It's just when is it community ready? Let's say.
All right.
It's a spin on the one question. I had to be creative. All right. So combat feel.
60%.
Interesting. Capture.
We have a lot to do there. I'm excited to. We're talking a lot about focusing on that for the next couple of weeks, and I think that's going to go a long way.
Amazing. That's not what a quick fire round is, but I'm joking. I love the context. I love the context. I love the context. Capture mechanics.
In terms of public's hands, 90%.
Interesting. Okay. The multiplayer stability.
It's getting pretty good now. I'm going to say 80%.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. Yeah. The progression systems.
Vertical slice progression.
We're talking about reworking some things. I'm going to say 60%.
Damn. These are very optimistic. The Illuvial combat.
Vertical slice is supposed to be in like a month and a half, man. I got to be optimistic.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's good. Illuvial companion combat.
50%.
Yeah. So the economy, the taps and the sinks.
I mean,
it's hard to say.
Not a lot of energy, I'd say. I mean, public's hands now for testnet or whatever, fine, but overall, like 20%. Lot to do there.
The loot systems.
Getting there. We have a lot of gear to make still, and we need to build this generative item system, but it is super playable now. I say 80-90%.
Yeah. Well, I've said boss battles / raids. This is just going to be the one boss battle. So how's that one boss battle?
There's going to be some other things too.
Okay. Okay.
I think the boss encounter feels like it's at like 85-90%. Mm-hmm. I know I'm saying that a lot, but it's close.
Cool. Well, I've got endgame content, but since we're talking vertical slice, I can skip that. The NFT integration. Take that however you want.
I don't know. I'll go low on that, 30-40%, but it's just because there's going to be a lot of different stuff to solve once we move into production. Cool. A lot of the back-end design discussion has moved along well. I think the understanding of what we want to accomplish is solid, but new implementation, there isn't a whole lot there right now.
Cool.
Someone asked in chat, and I want to answer because I'm excited. It is an EverQuest poster, and I played a ranger.
That's so funny.
What do you think about that? Chat. Played Rangers before, playing Rangers now.
That's funny as hell. All right, so there's two more. Exploration and lore. I know we're doing a whole revamp on that, aren't we?
A lot has happened on exploration and lore. I'd put that at like, I don't know, I'll put that at 50%. I'd say there's this like massive update for the sort of player journey, the quests associated with it. There's a whole quest line built. There's lots of environment changes to BRS, but also a lot of work still to do on all that stuff. There's a lot of supporting kind of art and dialogue and stuff that needs to happen to make the narrative stuff finished. But there's a lot there.
All right, cool, fully. All right, and the final one, percentage, vertical slice.
I'm gonna say 75%.
Okay. Cool.
Don't have a lot of time, but we have a lot of important stuff to do. So
is it just walking back 1 second?
Quick fire.
You've played the game obviously internally. I'd be extremely worried if you hadn't.
I have, I assure you.
Would you say it's fun? Are you enjoying playing the game and its current state, bugs and stuff aside? Are you enjoying going around capturing Illuvials, battling enemies, battling the boss?
I am actually. We got through some technical stuff a couple weeks ago, and it was like bug free enough, and something clicked, like the loop clicked of wanting to go farm to get better gear to try and get a better Illuvial. That all snapped together enough that all of a sudden it was like, oh, I am enjoying this. Like, I want to play more when the playtest slot ends because this is actually feeling good. I will caveat that with saying there's a lot of that loop is clicking. The boss fight is awesome. There is a lot of stuff that's working well and feels really fun. There is stuff that really needs attention and improvement. Combat, especially just making the way that enemies move, the pacing of combat, the way abilities work and are integrated with some of that needs attention, and it's going to get it. That's kind of next up. That's big. A lot of the UI, I don't know. There's things we need to do, but it is feeling fun. I am enjoying, like, I load it up and play and don't hate myself for doing that. You know, it's solid. I'm just mostly, and the other, the other thing that's stuff where we're at is like focusing on so much technical stuff, trying to get systems figured out, is seeing how much fun it will be when we can go wider with content. Like when there's tons of items, there's legendary stuff to find, which all the systems are there to support. It's a matter of, like when you ask about the loot system is working. It's extremely powerful. We can do all kinds of crazy stuff with loot, both in how we design the items and get them in the game and how they're distributed. That's all set up. We just need the time to go and build the content out to fill it in. And we're getting some of that. Like there's more and more, every week, but I know it's fun how it is. So it's exciting to think about once we can add more stuff there.
Well, I can definitely, attest to that, because myself, Kieran, Dick, and Llama, or Jackson, we did the same thing yesterday where we were recording footage for what's going to be coming out. And man, like the loop is there. We went in, was getting killed by the boss, went out, farmed a little bit, came back in, and it was just for sure. Obviously, there are a lot of things. My biggest pet peeve is the there's no animation for getting hit. Like there's no red thing. Like there's no signaling that you are actually taking damage. And obviously that's super, super important. But again, that's a quick fix. That's not a big, difficult thing.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of that kind of mandatory UI feedback stuff. We had most of UI resources on Arena until super recently. So we're only just starting to get kind of really noticeable UI support. Even though we've had UI designs, there's tons of stuff waiting to get put in. We just need the engineering to do it and it's moving over from Arena now, so that'll happen. But
awesome.
There's a lot of patience needed on some of this stuff for sure.
Yeah, sick. All right, yo, Steven, appreciate you, man. I know it's late. I know you're tired. You absolutely killed it.
That's a loopy questions, but it's good to talk to you guys. Though it was fun.
No, it was great, man. Scoriox, appreciate you having me back on after cutting you off as many times as I do. But yeah, close this one out, man.
I appreciate it so much, Steven. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting you on more often, hopefully at a time that suits you better. I actually want to get more people from the Illuvium team in general on more often and get them on more frequently for these episodes of the show. And yeah, thanks so much. Is there any last stuff you want to say before we wrap this one up, Steve?
No, I'm good. Let me go to sleep, man.
All right. And with that, the download is complete. Thanks.